Thank you very much. Right. Here we go. Going on the normal trend of using AI, that is my inner child. Not what I think of, but what AI thinks my inner child is based on the prompt. I've been working across many specializations in security, from governance, risk management, development, and more in the last 8 years working in incident response. I've worked in SOCs, mainly in organizations that have been post-threat actor shenanigans type experience. A lot of my focus has been on uplifting the maturity of their incident response capability. Very heavily into bouldering, indoor rock climbing, and making silly voices as a dungeon master. So those are flavors of who I am. What am I going to talk about? So I'm going to talk about the Security Information Event Management, or SIEM, or a number of other different pronunciations that different people may have depending on where they're from or what mood they're in. I'm going to talk about the technology itself, how it came to be, why we have it. Then going to go into considering, are you happy with it? Is it a good thing? Are there benefits there? And then go into the alternative. Or is there an alternative? But first, people's favorite subject at school, history. So the SIEM, love continuing the theme. So about around 2005, Gartner, if you believe the web is the source of all information, someone at Gartner came up with the phrase SIEM, which is a combination of Security Information Management, SIM, and Security Event Management, SEM. So it's a really, really clever merger of the two terms. The idea is to improve your log management, bring your event information to the same place to make it easier and better to look into and research your things that you're interested in. Moving forward to SIEM 2.0 back in 2011, 2012, that's where we got into scalability. We had to have more and more data. We need more and more data, so you need bigger and bigger systems, so they became more scalable to gobble up that data, improve your analytics, move away from just signature-based type of detections, and really focus on APIs to better improve the way that your access to more data. And then we started also to see workflows come into play as well. And then we moved through to SIEM 3.0, fully cloud-based, hyper-available and super scalable. If you have data, doesn't matter how much data you want, doesn't matter, it's in the cloud. It doesn't cost anything at all. Well, yeah, we'll come back to that one. The automation, much more ramped up. We start seeing the seeds of machine learning and partner-developed connectors, not just connectors that are developed by the platform themselves, but now they've got hooks into all of the other technology vendors that produce them, the connectors. It makes it all seamless and really, really a fun place to play around in the SIEM. I'm very biased, by the way. I don't know whether you could tell by the tone of voice that I'm using here. And then we move into what we're on now, SIEM 4.0, the precipice, staring into the abyss of now the new AI models. They're going to fix everything. We just need to have all this large language models that can suddenly tell us what's going wrong, fix the problems, even before we're actually aware and we've changed the light bulb to red. But then where are we going to go next? It could be, as I've put in there, human-powered SIEMs. We need to really go back to Gartner to really find out what their viewpoint will be on where the technology is going to go. But why do we have the SIEM? So 3 popular arguments throughout my years of working in this area have been focused on the first, which is compliance. It's because we've got regulations and we've got rules that tell us that we have to have a SIEM installed in our environment. The second one is that so we tick that box. So the second one is that our customers expect us to have a SIEM. And for a number of us who may have experienced the fun of going through and answering those supplier questionnaires. One of the questions may be, what is your SIM technology that you have in? So customers are very aware, and they grade you based on the technology that you've got and you've adopted. It doesn't matter how well you use it, they just want to see that you've got Splunk or you've got Logarithm or another technology solution. And then the last one is it's the security perception. Everybody else has one, we have to have one. It really makes sense. It's what we see in all the marketing, it's what we understand. But the reality is that the standards don't actually ever specify that we have to have a SIM technology. We don't have to have a platform that has the label SIM written on the side of it. The SIM is meant to meet your organization's needs, which derives from your risk assessment, your understanding of what the threats are to your organization and how you appropriately detect and respond to them. So it's not this box ticking exercise. It's your perception of risk. So let's look at some of those standards. So if you can bother to read that, none of those actually say you have to have a SIM. The one that goes the furthest is PCI, that says they expect you to have centralized logging. But they don't say that you have to have that with the machine learning and the workflows and everything else. Just you have to have the logs centralized. But I worked in a PCI compliant environment for a number of years. We had 4 different SIMs, all siloed in different regions across the globe. I don't think that's centralized. We had one that produced over 1,000 alerts per day. So it wasn't continuously manned because nobody had the capability to look through 1,000 alerts and understand. Not when we didn't have the machine learning and everything at the time. So you can tick the box to satisfy PCI or ISO 27001 without actually doing what they think you should be doing. So these are Simon's definitions of security event management, information management. So your security events, they are indicators, failures that something has happened, or indicators of activity, something is going on. That's what an event is, something that's going on. Your information is something that supports those things that you're interested in. So it identifies, it enables you to be able to investigate, it enables you to be able to provide some sort of conclusion, it enables you to monitor your controls, the things that you are interested in. And then management. The best definition for that I saw was in the Oxford Dictionary, big up the homeland. And the definition is very simple. It is control and organization of something. Very simple. So let's take those definitions and think, well, technology's come up with this solution that does it all together in one big package. It makes those things that we're expected to do within that management better for us. So looking on the right-hand side of the diagram here, and I'm sorry, it's a very simplified network. So you've got your host protection, which could be endpoint protection. It could be XDR or whatever a brilliant acronym that there is nowadays. Then you've got your network protection, your firewalls, your intrusion detection solutions. You've got SaaS applications, which are really important. They could hold some of the key data of your organization. They themselves may not, or may be part of your security infrastructure. You then have your SIM, the tool that the technology, the nirvana, the black box that's going to solve all your woes. And then you've got on the side this task management thing, which I'll come back to in a minute. On the right-hand side, we've got then some of the key, that's not everything, it's just to emphasize my point, and you can't really argue because there's no questions at the end. So the first one, we've got alert creation. So it's the being able to identify something's occurring. The second one is prioritization. So it's how we know which ones to look at first. And then enrichment and note-taking, that's for your audit trail. You've then got your storage, your search capability, or correlation is the new term, but effectively anything that you define as matches in some way, that's a correlation. Doesn't mean causation, but it's a correlation. You've then got your notifications. And again, notifications are different from alerts because your alert could be generated but nobody notices. The notification is the thing that grabs you by the face and says, look at this. And then you've got the workflow, the thing that can automate it. So looking at these, let's look at the first one, the alerts, and think, right, okay, which systems generate alerts? And you may have made the assumption already, but yes, the protection solutions and your SIEM will generate alerts, which is what you kind of expect. Cool. But ranking is something that the SIEM should be doing because it's the thing that helps us organize and manage our events, what we're going to do. So that's where only the SIEM does it, right? No, because we've got the tools that first raise the alerts. They also tell us how important they are. You've got the SIEM that then has its own model to tell you how important it is. But then you also may have the task management platform that also may tell you how important these things are. And that's it could be based on how your IT team rates and grades things. So you've got disparity there. But then the audit, only your audit logs and your information that you're really interested in is going to be contained in the SIEM. No, it's the same systems again, that they all have the capacity for people to add notes, people to add additional data. And then hopefully you can see the very labored point that I'm demonstrating here. And again, I'm very oversimplifying this, and there are lots of arguments against why I'm completely wrong, but it emphasizes my point. The ability to store data happens in lots of locations. You can search in lots of those different solutions. A lot of them have the ability to notify you about things. And finally, a lot of them have workflows as well. So I've emphasized that and exaggerated that point because I'm trying to explain to you that there is a number of duplication across the technology ecosystem that we have. So now shift a little bit and just want you to think, this is a safe space for all of us. Are you happy with your SIEM that you have? If you are one that uses it, or you're a budget controller that may make the decision as to which technology platform we have, or you're an IT person that has to maintain it, or an engineer, or whatever other role, I don't want to generalize here, are you happy with your SIEM? Have you gone through the process of you've got it stable, it's mature, it's working, well budgeted, you've always kept within the budget, and there's not a complaint there? May happen, may exist. You've not experienced any changes constantly to your data mapping and your API, to how things are connected together. You don't have to keep maintaining this. You're not having to keep updating the agents that are deployed onto different machines, and then that knocks over the infrastructure, and then they're complaining at you because you've taken down some of the public-facing network and so on and so forth. Oh, security. No, it doesn't happen. So we're not fatigued by the SIEM in that way. And then I'm sure some of you may have heard of the single pane of glass, the SPOG. It's the nirvana of the SIEM platform, and one that was almost realized, so close to being realized. But I will come back to that one in a moment. Our ideals of what a SIEM should be, what the promises that we were given about frictionless migration from one platform to another, the partner-developed connectors that they just work because the partner maintains them. We don't need to do it. When they change their technology, they update the models that map the data 3 months later. The pre-built detection models work if you fit that specific use case. But when you add the business context to what your organization does, how traffic flows and everything, you have to still engineer a lot of those detection models. You're doing a lot of GitHub or other data repository searches. You're looking at intelligence feeds to see, well, how do I get it to fit to my business, my industry? And then you've got free training that was promised when you purchased this platform. They're going to train you on how to use this tool, and they're going to provide you with some very specific dedicated resources to help set it all up, which you then spend a lot of time and money on the planning stage, and you run out of the budget for the actual doing of the work. And we got close. One organization I worked in, we moved from one SIEM to another platform, and then we finally started from the basis of requirements to design to implementation, and we were 90% there. And then very well-known company that produces a computer system but is not named after doors. And they came along with a very competitively packaged solution. It was really nice. They had a very free SIEM platform that came in there, and all their data is free. If you put their data in there, it doesn't cost you anything else. Within 1 year, we were only 50% along the project, and the budget exceeded the other previous 2 years' worth of spend on our SIEM, because there were a lot of hidden costs and things that weren't understood or explained. And I'm not blaming the vendor or the technology company, because they have to make money. What I'm blaming is our ability to actually stop and say, do we really need this? Coming back to the point of something has to change here, and it's not about the technology itself, because for some people, the technology works, and it works brilliantly, and I'm very happy for those people. But my viewpoint is that these large, monolithic, big technology platforms that will have all the data in one place, they're a niche case. They're not the norm, and we need to have that thought process that, in reality, coming back to what I was saying before about SIEM technology, it doesn't exist as far as our regulators are concerned, as far as our standards and our frameworks are concerned. The SIEM is a capability that you have to achieve within your organization. So I love governance and I love compliance. I like, because it's written based on well thought through idea of, if you want to achieve good security, do these things very well. And somewhere along the way, we've lost that focus, and we've ticking the box to say we've got a certificate and we can sell more stuff, but the security hasn't improved to align with what we say or what the compliance team want to help us achieve. So if we have that epiphany, that moment of thinking, we're talking about capability, not technology, we should go back and revisit our organization's risks and its security strategy. How are we going to mitigate those risks that we've identified? What are the threat profiles that we're most interested in? And in my opinion, all of the various tools and the technology that are available, some are good, some are bad. You choose the ones that meet your capability most appropriately. And Gartner, they've come back and they've stolen my thunder on this one. Last year, they've come up with a new buzzword. It's the decoupled SIEM, which basically it means you no longer have one platform that's going to just do everything for you. They believe that the future of the SIEM is going to be this decoupled SIEM. I prefer the phrase that one of my mentors, and been a CISO for me for more years than I would like to actually recall, he coined it as it's a system of systems, which is based on a principle of, back in, if anyone's from an architectural background, service-orientated architecture. And what that means is you have a collection of capabilities, of technologies within your architecture, your tooling set, and you leverage the strengths of what those tools are capable of, and you ignore the rest. You don't use the workflow within one tool if it's not appropriate to meet your capability needs. What you need to do is you think, well, actually, do I need to push all my data to this SIEM platform? Because somebody says we may need it one day. If you don't have a detection model, if you don't have a use case specifically to use that data within a certain time frame, then you don't need it there. You may need it to support an investigation, but you're not doing instant investigations every day. And if you are, I would be more concerned about other issues within your security controls. So you can significantly reduce your costs of storage if you're not just pushing everything into this very costly SIEM data analysis platform. But I need it for correlation. How much correlate? How much of that data do you actually run through your correlation models? Have you actually done the analysis to see whether you run through half of that data? Is it really, again, it comes back to understanding how this aligns to the risks and how it aligns to the strategy of what you need to protect within your organization. And then one of the things that would really benefit is, we talked about before about the partner-developed connectors. They make it seamless now. But actually, with the advent of technology like AI, we don't need that, because you can much quicker put a search prompt into an AI tool. It will go and find the latest technology specifications for that developed technology, and it will provide you a solution that can map out, and it may not be perfect, but at least it can get you most of the way there, and you can develop that connector and improve that, the code in the background a lot quicker than having to rely on your technology provider to liaise with their technology provider team, develop an interface, upload it to their partner app portal, and then you receive the benefit of that update within your SIM 6 months after they changed the actual data mapping. But why bother? It's really hard. Well, is it? Do you actually know how much time you spend maintaining the big chunky SIM that you have in your organization? I've seen a lot of effort spent pivoting from, oh, we need this data source, to suddenly, oh, there's this other data source that's now come online, or as ever, technology within your organization, not just the not just the security team, but your IT team or marketing. They are always constantly choosing new technologies, new tools. You may need to suddenly start monitoring them. And the bigger your tool, the harder it is for you to be able to pivot. So by keeping your architecture for your SIM capability, not technology, agile, by investing in the ability to orchestrate and automate using a orchestration capability, not necessarily a SOAR capability, because that, again, is like a SIM. It's something that can orchestrate, but with the security flavors on top. You can enable your organization to pivot based on how technology trends change, how your risk profile changes within your organization, how your organization structure and needs and processes change, far quicker than if you're beholden to a technology partner and provider. You have more control over the direction your security strategy is implemented. You can also invest in the capability of your team. Rather than having them trained on how to use a platform, you can train them on how to actually build platforms together. Fundamental principles like Python and regex and other sort of coding standards, which makes them understand the nuts and bolts, rather than understanding the very specific way that Splunk or Elastic or another technology provider prefers you to work. If you invest in those people, they'll feel empowered and valued. So am I saying go into your data center, cover it all in petrol and light the match and walk out? Not really. But what I'm saying is if you're thinking that your product, if you're thinking that your product contract renewal is up and you're thinking, well, let's start looking at the market. If there's something here that may have resonated with you and you're wondering whether your budget's increasing, but is the risk profile of your organization changing and increasing at the same time? Are they proportional? Is the technology stack going up and your risk profile is staying very, very similar? Suddenly you're seeing this disparity, so you need to start thinking, well, maybe we should revisit and look back at what we defined were the most important aspects. What are the risks for our organization? And then the last one is, if you've got another feature, if you're distracted by another, my favorite one is when you've got executives come in and say, oh, I've seen this new thing, we're going to buy this module, and then you can plug it in and take advantage of it, and it's going to solve all of the security problems because it's a dashboard and it's got these pop-ups and everything. Does it meet the need? Because again, if you go back to your strategy, if you go back to the work done at the very beginning by your governance team, and by your risk assessment, and by your senior leadership, your security pioneers, they've already identified what are the most important things. So if it's not in that strategy, why are you starting to adopt new technology just because it's the next shiny, fancy thing that's got some very slick marketing around it? Don't be duped. Just asking you to take a moment, pause, and evaluate. So, those are my opinions. If nothing else, all I wanted to do was overcome my own personal anxiety about public speaking, and you've all been my guinea pigs, so thank you. But more importantly, what I would like you to understand is that, again, SIEM, however you pronounce it, it is not a technology. It is a capability that you're expected to provide by ISO 27001, PCI DSS, SOC 2, whatever compliance legislation that you have in place, it is important. One thing I didn't mention before is data storage. You still need data. There are legal reasons for you to keep data for 12 months, 24 months, depending on what country, what industry you're in. But it doesn't need to be hot storage. It doesn't need to be readily available. If you're looking back 12 months, 24 months regularly of data, that's just too much. It costs too much, and it's not viable. So make your investments. So coming back to the takeaway messages then, if you're not using and spending all your money on a massive SIEM solution, invest smartly on things that actually meet the need. So go back to that risk assessment, that controls framework that you may have if you've done the job correctly. And there'll be gaps in there. You may not have covered everything. I doubt everyone has covered everything. So where the gaps are, that's where you invest your money. You invest smartly, not bigly. And then finally, put your guys on training courses. Make them feel value. They're not going to leave the organization just because you've invested in them. They're going to feel more supported. They're going to feel like they've got the tools to do the job, and they're going to love the network, the capability, and the architecture that they build. So they will be a lot better able to respond quicker and understand just what's going on because they built the models and they built the connections, and they'll be a lot happier. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Everyone, thank Simon once again, please.